So guys, welcome back to the channel again. What we're going to be doing today is tearing down a PS4 controller. This is the PS4 controller. As you can see, it's lit up. Now the issues we're having with this controller is the buttons are sticking very slightly. It's not stopping the gameplay, but you can feel them sticking slightly all the way around. So what we're going to do is do a tear down and show you how to do this safely and get the buttons and everything cleaned up, and that should resolve the problems with the controller. Now I believe this one's been taken apart before, judging by the screw heads. It's a little bit shiny in places, so that indicates it's been taken apart before, but these controllers are one of the easiest ones to do. They do only have the 4 screws here, and you don't need to remove the label there to get to one underneath. Just literally just take the 4 screws out and it will come apart, but we'll show you how to do that in a minute. And one thing I would like to point out is there are different types of controller casings. You see the little strip in between the fire button and the top button there, and the same there's a little strip. Now on some controllers this is part of the casing, of the rear bottom casing here, and you have to be careful when removing this casing that you don't damage the buttons there, because sometimes they pop off and you break the little spindles that hold them in place. Now in this case the chassis is what them are attached to, so these will not be attached to the casings. This black controller, you probably can't see them quite clearly, but it is attached to the casings on that one, so you have to be careful. So once again we're going to be using a silver wire precision screwdriver set, so we'll put a link down in the description below where you can purchase one of these off our eBay shop. Very versatile tool. There is several different bits in it which will help you remove screws in not just controllers, but you can also use them mobile phones, things like that. So they always come in handy to have a set of these around. And yeah, so I'll drop the link down below in the description and you can check those out at your leisure. Here we have the controller. First thing you need to do is turn it over. We have some tweezers here just in case we need them, and I'll just move the black one out of the way. There you go, pops up, all the screwdriver bits pop up, and you just need to remove a posi screwdriver, place it in your bit holder, start removing the screws. Now this side is a magnetic mat, so we use that just to place the screws on, and it keeps them all in place so we don't lose any. So let's move this out of the way for a second. Once again, with your thumbs at the ends, just push them down. You may need a pry tool to remove these. We have a selection of pry tools here, so you might need something like this. This is a pry tool, and just slip it under the edges all the way around to help you remove the casing. As like I said, I think this one's been stripped down before, so it's quite simple to get off. So as I mentioned earlier in the video, I think I got it wrong. These are part of the casings, and as you see I gently lifted them off, prising them forward so they would avoid the buttons. So on some models these are actually part of the chassis that holds all the motherboards and the batteries in, so the actual plastic sections here are attached to the chassis here, round about there. So once you've done that, you need to remove the charge port ribbon from there. Some of them have a tab there. You can just get your tweezers, if you can't get your fingers in, and just pull it out, and then that will come off. And you just need to put that to one side safely, and the next thing to do is to remove the battery. So again, if you might need to put your fingers in this, try not to use the wires. What you need to do is get your fingernails under the tabs at the side and pull. It should come out like that. Again, put the battery to one side, and then you have the battery cradle. Now this has a couple of clips. There's usually one down there, that one's quite loose, and there's one down at this side. So once you've done that, you can remove the cradle. The next thing you need to do is remove the screw. Now most controllers will have a screw somewhere on the board, and sometimes the screw is actually holding the battery cradle in. Once you remove the screw, place it somewhere safe. You also need to remove this ribbon here. Just lift that up, and again, these are different. This one has a little tab, so you need to flick it up so that it stands up like that, and then you need to remove the ribbon like that. And as you can see, one of the fire buttons has just removed itself, but that's part of the cleaning process, so we'll let that one off. There you can see the motherboard is out and it's still attached by the motors, but we don't need to worry about that because the whole chassis frame will lift out like that now. And that basically is your chassis for the controller. So one of the fire buttons has already removed itself, and this is a spring. It's very important that you keep that somewhere safe, because that spring is what is needed to give the button some resistance. It basically goes down the side there and it attaches to one of the spindles here. So again, don't lose those, otherwise you'll be in trouble. So removing the fire buttons is quite simple. That one came off by itself. You just basically tilt them back like that, and there you can see the spring is still attached to the spindle on the side. So we'll place the fire buttons over here on the mat so we know where they are. That's just my helping hands getting in the way. The L1 button, little tug, just give it a little wiggle, it will come out. And there you go. And again, the R1 button, little wiggle and a tug, it will come out. Now to remove the rubber contact buttons, you just simply pull them. You'll notice they have some locating pins made out of rubber. These two will go in there, and again you can remove these like that, again placing them somewhere safe. The stick buttons just pull off like that, and if you was changing your buttons, this is the very same procedure that you'd be doing here. So once you've done all that, you need to start removing the rubber. So they come off quite easily, placing them to one side. Now each button has some lugs on each side, so when you remove them, each lug is specifically located to the case, so you can't really mess this up, but I like to put them in the order that they came out, so this is how I do it. I just put them as they were. It's just easier to do it that way sometimes, and the other button at the other side again just lifts out. These again just pull off and you can get to the PS4 controller button. That's the main housing button. That simply you tilt that in that direction, pull it out, will come out like that, and then you have two small buttons at the top. Again, you just need to take them out. Once you have everything removed, you can start cleaning it. So these are alcohol wipes, and what I'm doing is I've just wrapped it around my tweezers to create a swab, and all you need to do is wipe around the insides of where the buttons go. This is removing, and you can see the dirt inside there. I mean, this is a lot of the problems with controllers is the dirt that gets in there, and quite often if children have been playing with them, they get covered in sugary sweets and gunk like that. You know, cans of pop get spilt on them, and it does create some problems inside. But a simple cleaning exercise like this will resolve a lot of the button sticking issues, and it will help your gameplay quite a bit. Again, just making sure you're getting every area where there's a button, and there are quite a few buttons on a PlayStation controller, so it takes a while to do, requires a little bit of patience. Just for the record, this isn't the worst dirt I've seen in a controller. A lot worse than this, yeah. But yes, like I say, it doesn't take much, and it is one of them problem areas with controllers that, you know, it just requires a little bit of maintenance. So we'll do the buttons while we're here, making sure they're alright. So again, each button individually. This is where you don't necessarily need the tweezers. There you can see there's quite a lot of dirt on that one. Is clean some dirt, if there is any, on the pads themselves. Simply just popping them out like that, and then just give them a quick wipe over. Will help remove any contaminants off the pads. Now these look quite new, so they look to be okay. On the conductive board, which is the plastic conductive bit, you need to check there's no debris or again contaminants on the contacts. This one looks quite fine to me, so we're not going to mess about with it too much. You do need to be careful with the alcoholic wipes, because sometimes it does rub off the contacts, so you've got to be really careful with that. So once you've got all the bits and pieces cleaned up, you can just give it a once over around the edges where the casing is. This being a white controller, it shows the dirt up immensely, so It's just a case of giving it a good clean really. You see in the grooves there's slight bits of dirt. And once you're satisfied with the cleaning job, you can put it back together. We'll just put this back together now. So there we go. Now it's all nice and clean. It's time to put it back together. So everything is a reversal of how you took it apart. So you can just start by putting your buttons back in. Again, the lugs tend to locate where they need to be. See, this one's incorrect. It's because it's the opposite side, so we'll pick the other one up. Sometimes this can be the most fiddly part of it. This needs flipping around. There you go. Again, the two buttons for the controller here will only go in one way, so you just drop them in, turn them round as you're doing it. They will just drop into place when they're correct. And again, they will only go in the designated holes. It's like square pegs, square holes. Here have little pinholes here and here. There are 4 on this one, so when you're placing this back in, there's just a little hair there, move that. It's important that these are lined up correctly. Once you can locate them, just push them down, and that will make sure they're in place and you won't have any problems then when you're using the buttons. You just push them down with your tweezers. Make sure that they're nice and secure. There we go. Now we need to get the fire buttons in on the chassis. Oh, before I forget, put this one back in. So this again, you just place in underneath there, let it drop down, that's in. So that's ready. I just need to do the fire buttons. So again, these will only go in the way they came out. So oh, sorry, I forgot to put the rubber things back in. The observant one out there. Oh, you didn't put the rubber thing back in. Again, making sure that the locating pins on the rubber contacts are in place. You can see the rubber. On this particular rubber, it has a little lip on it at the top there, which basically that hooks over the top of the chassis there. You push it down and then just keep tapping it with your tweezers or whatever you're using. Make sure it's hooked on and in place. You should be ready to go. Thought I'd got the wrong one then for a minute. I'm trying to put it on the right hand side. I always start with these 2 buttons first when I do this, because it's like you just give them a press, make sure they're firing right. Once you've done that, this is where the fiddly bit comes in. You might not be able to see this on the camera, just adjust the light slightly, but there is a little groove there, and what you do is put your little pin spring, should I say, try to locate. This is a little bit fiddly. On other models you don't have to do this because it's attached to the chassis is the spring. What I try to do is put my thumb there, and I try to do this on camera, so it's a bit tricky. There's a little groove there where the other end of the spring goes in, so you need to try and get that in and get it located. Once it's in, you'll hear it pop in. That one seems to be working fine. And again, you do the same with the opposite side. It's one of them jobs where you need about 15 hands, is this. You know. So hold that in with, oh, I've lost it already. This is the thing with the springs, is that once you lose one it disappears completely. So what we will do is get a new one. I have a bag of spares here, so I'll find the other one. It'll probably be on the floor now. But I do have spares, so we'll just use a spare. There's one there just popping up. There we go. So again, you need to locate the little groove in the and let's just try and hold it in with my finger again. Okay, and give it a quick press down. There we go, snapped into place. Now here comes the fun bit. Oh, now there's the spring that I lost. See, they fly about, you can't see them. It's to replace the stick buttons. Quite often I forget to do that and I put it back together and I realise I've no stick buttons. So just get it into. Now what I like to do is try and get this into the chassis so it's locating pins are in place. Then the ribbon that needs to come up, I just try and in place, making sure that that tab is facing that way. Slide that in with your fingers and then push the tab back down. So once you have it all in place, make sure it's down and all the locating pins are through and holding it in place. Then all you need to do is reattach the screw. Making sure it's tight. So the motherboard makes contact with the flexible film that's underneath. Place the battery chassis on. Reattach the battery, making sure the battery is located correctly, and before you put the back casing on is just to give this a little bit of a clean as well. In. It is relatively in good condition. You can just use the tweezers, point of the tweezers with a little bit of the cloth in there just to get it little bits of dirt out. Now you've got the chassis back in, you need to reattach the charging port ribbon. Again, this is quite a fiddly job. Sometimes you wish you had another pair of hands, but I think I'll use my fingers, a bit easier. Then you just put this back together. So once again, these bars that run across there need to be hooked over. You need to be careful you don't loosen the fire buttons, the R1 and the L1 button. And what I tend to do is just put my finger there and there, just to get them over those little. Just keep jiggling it until it sits right, checking all the edges, making sure it's correct and clipped in, and all that's left to do is replace the screws. And there we go. It's a complete tear down, strip down of a controller. So if you are looking at the screen now, we'll just, there we go, need to get out of that screen, there we go. There we go. Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Big thank you to everybody who is doing that so far, and we'll catch you in another video soon.